Recently I was asked to fill in this picture frame thing for our blacksmith organization, the Guild of Metalsmiths. They're trying to get a bunch of us really old members of the Guild of Metalsmiths, a Minnesota and Western Wisconsin blacksmith club, and member of the Minnesota Transportation Museum, to put something on these frames so they can hang them up in the machine shop blacksmith area of the Minnesota Transportation Museum. So they gave me one at our annual 47th conference in September of 2024, and told me to go home and put something on it. Well, I didn't know what to put on it, you know. So I thought, well, what have I really done that's worth putting on it? You know, I've done some stuff. I was vice president of the club for 12 or 14 years, and I ran every committee, and my wife and I did all the meeting announcements and stuff for many years, and, you know, lick 'em and stick 'em, we used to call it, things like that. I've taught basic blacksmithing classes. I helped to write the little book called Iron Menagerie, which the club still sells for profit and uses for educational purposes, and with friends, obviously. And with friends, Bob Friedel and I wrote a book called the Blacksmithing Study Guide, and that was around for many years as a self-study way to learn blacksmithing. You know, done stuff like that. But what I guess I really did was spend many years demonstrating to the public. And I even demonstrated at the Minnesota State Fair for a few years. My wife and I have gone together in 1870s costume and demonstrated at historical reenactments for 35 years. We're retired now. I'm 85. Anyway, so what am I going to put on this thing? So I thought, really, if I did anything that I am pretty proud of, it would be really public demonstrations, okay? So I think this is really what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take a picture of this particular frame as well as I can and have a poster made of it and put that on here instead of all these parts. But I think that's what I'm going to do. So, you know, I got thinking, well, what shall I put on there? You know, I've got lots of stuff that I've demonstrated and given away and sold some and so on. So I started looking around the place for what could I, you know, demonstrate. And, you know, this is my shop as it is right now. You know, it's been around a long time and so on, you know. And I looked at stuff that I had in coffee cans, and, you know, these are pieces of things that are done for various reasons, and I don't know, tricks and games and fun things, and nails are in here. Components that I would partially do during a demonstration to the public, but since I didn't want to bore people, you know, I would move on kind of quickly. You know, on and on and on. Anyway, so, you know, just kind of around the shop. What am I going to put on there? What am I going to put on there? What am I going to put on there? Okay. And so, you know, just looking around at the huge mess, yeah, all that stuff from all these years. What am I going to put on there? Okay. So, I guess what I finally settled on is what's right here. And so the idea was, in my own mind, the first thing I wanted to do during public demonstrations was to entertain the people who watched. The second thing I wanted to do was to make them aware of what blacksmithing was. And so to do that, I wanted to make simple things that could be mostly done in a short period of time so we wouldn't lose people's interest, but yet get something accomplished where they could see an end result. That's what I had in mind, okay? So these are some of the items that I would demonstrate regularly. I often had a kind of a shtick, they call it, of 6 things that I would do sort of in a row and then repeat that, and then throw in something a little different from time to time. And then I'm always talking when I'm demonstrating because I'm explaining things. And in my own mind, I'm teaching them the 8 basic processes of blacksmithing. And hopefully I do that in a fun way for them, so they go home feeling they have had a good day and maybe even learned something. So this is kind of what I did. I would start out by making 3 nails, okay? And those are square nails, and they're 4-clout nails, and so I would make them. And then I would, and say, well, there we're drawing out and we're upsetting. And then I'd move on to the next project where I would add another thing or two, like an S-hook here, where I would do some bending, and I would do some drawing out, and I would do some twisting. And then I might jump on to making a piece of chain here. And there would the addition would be forge welding. And then I might go on into other things, so I would make one link, make a second link, and then make a third link, and then forge weld them together so that there are 3. And then sometimes I would forge weld those 3 onto a piece of chain that was ever growing, so and so on. Sometimes I would get fancy and make something like this trammel, or this trammel. I'm not much of an artist, but once in a while I would make a little mouse here. Then I would maybe make one of these candle holders. And one of the neat things about that is that I could either make that out of a piece of 1/4 by 1.5 inch flat stock and a piece of sheet metal, or I could make the very same thing out of one piece of 5/8 round, or maybe it was 3/4 inch round rod, about 8 or 10 inches long, cut 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches off of it, and actually spread that thing out and to make the candle cup. So either way, and there I could show how much shape change you can do with blacksmithing. And then this is another good one that I like to do. I learned this from Tom Latinay. This is called a spike candle, and that was made from one piece of stock, no forge welds or anything like that. Yeah, and quite a project. And then just for fun, I would make these little axes, okay, and then I'd go over to somebody who was doing woodworking at a historical setting and get a sliver of wood and make a little handle. And then, of course, just for fun, and this wasn't one of my best ones, but I would make this, and then I would ask everybody what it was, and of course nobody would guess it, what it was, and of course what it is a forged check. And then an all-time favorite was steel strikers, for making fires. And I made a lot of those, and during that I would teach heat treating, and we would talk about some pretty esoteric things, decarburization and so on. And I'm constantly watching the public to make sure they're with me. And if there's somebody particularly interested, I kind of draw them in. And while talking to them in front of the public, so everybody understands, they might ask a question and I might answer it, or maybe push them a little bit, so on. And then one other that I really enjoyed making was this pair of tiny tongs. And the cool thing about making these tongs is they're made out of 1/4 inch square, and I could make each half in one heat and then rivet them together. And of course, every time I'm doing something like that, I'm teaching a new process. So that's kind of what I think I'm going to put on this, again, this poster. I think that's what I'm going to put on this board, and that hangs up there. And then back up here, this is just a picture of me demonstrating. And then across from me for many years, there was this guy named David Winters, who was a painter and I believe a violinist too. But he painted that in watercolors, and that's his take on me demonstrating. So that's kind of it. That's some of the stuff that I used to demonstrate when I demonstrated blacksmithing to the public. Thank you for watching.